There is a thread in my homily this morning that will talk about coming home. And I will tell you without hesitation that every time my dear and good friend Callie invites me to come here, I feel like I am coming home. Thank you all for your graciousness, for your accepting me and making me feel as if I am indeed coming home. Thank you. When you're weary, feeling small, when tears are in your eyes, I'll dry them all. I'm on your side. When times get rough and friends just can't be found, like a bridge over troubled water, I will weigh me down. With these words, Paul Simon expressed the truth that inspired his writing of the song, A Bridge Over Troubled Water, that life is sometimes filled with trouble, and it's good to have a friend we can count on to help us through the difficult times. Don't we all want a friend like that? Someone to watch over us, to care for us, comfort us, to love us, and be willing to sacrifice everything for us. And here's the truth. We already do, don't we? In today's gospel, Jesus tells us, I am the good shepherd who lays down his life for the sheep. I know my own, and my own know me. So if Jesus is our shepherd and we are his sheep, what would that be like? Spiritual writer Frederick Buechner tells a story of a man he knew in Vermont who raised sheep. Some he named, some not, but he knew his sheep, and his sheep knew him. If one got lost, the man wouldn't stop looking until he found it. If one got sick or hurt, he would go to any length to get it well again. He would even go so far as to feed them with bottles when they needed it and gathered in his flock each night to keep them safe. Once in the shed, the man would feed the sheep as they butted and pushed each other to get to the food. Like sheep, we get hungry, and hungry for more than just food. We get thirsty for more than just drink. Our souls get hungry and thirsty. Sometimes there is an emptiness in our hearts that we know needs to be filled. And if we are listening, this is exactly when we hear the voice of the Good Shepherd calling us. Jesus is our Good Shepherd. What does it mean to be a good shepherd? The shepherd who lovingly cares for his flock, treating each sheep with gentleness and compassion. He is the one who will search for us if we have strayed, or when times get rough and it seems that friends cannot be found. In his poem, The Hound of Heaven, Francis Thompson wrote, I fled, I hid from him. He never stopped loving me and calling me home. Isn't there comfort in knowing that Jesus will never stop searching for his lost sheep, for us, until he finds every last one of us and brings us home? It's been said you can never go home again. But when Jesus brings us home, back into the flock, it's a joyous occasion. Maybe it's a chance to slate the clean and come home to our better selves. A time to rekindle the love of family and friends. Possibly it's a time and a chance for renewal, to start over again. And in this season of Eastertide, maybe we can see this as resurrection. Madeleine L'Engle has an interesting story about a dinner party in a large English country home. The custom was that after dinner, each guest was asked to share a talent in a brief performance for the other guests. As it happened, the actor Charles Laughton was among the guests, and he recited the 23rd Psalm. As expected, it was beautifully done and was met with enthusiastic applause. Later in the evening, an elderly woman who was sitting alone in a corner, half in and out of sleep, was asked if she would like to participate. She began by reciting and completing the 23rd Psalm, "The Lord is my shepherd," and went on to finish the psalm. When her recitation was complete, there were tears in the eyes of many of the guests. Later, one of the guests spoke with Lawton and said what a wonderful job he had done, but he wondered why Lawton seemed so touched by the woman who had just recited the 23rd Psalm. Lawton's response: "I know the psalm. She knows the shepherd." Jesus said, "I am the good shepherd. I know my own, and my own know me. I have other sheep that are not in this fold. I must bring them also. There will be one flock." What are the qualifications to be part of Jesus' flock? There are none. There are no good sheep or bad sheep, just sheep. Everyone is included. In the eyes of the shepherd, we are all loved, valued, and worthy. We are all God's sheep all of the time. Even when we think we don't belong, we are loved unconditionally. And when we think we are lost with no hope of being found, especially then, he calls to us. We just need to listen for his voice, calling each of us by name. We're all in the same flock, but we know that we're not all the same people. We have our own personalities. We have our own way of being. Well, there's a sign outside of the cathedral in England, Coventry Cathedral. The sign reads, "All are welcome. Those just browsing and those who haven't been to church in 10 years. Wailing babies, those who are doubters, down in the dumps, or could use a prayer." And we might add, those on the margins, those with no voice, those who feel that they aren't heard or seen. In his famous work, The Invisible Man, Ralph Ellison wrote of what it feels like to be unseen, unheard, and misunderstood. He said, I am invisible simply because people refuse to see me." To Jesus, we are never invisible. We are never forgotten. We are all loved with a love that has no boundaries. There are no limits. St. Mother Teresa provides a wonderful insight into this in what she calls kinship, when she reminds us we all belong to each other. The shepherd and the sheep. We must care for each other, trust each other, forgive and love one another. Turn our compassion into action. And that requires making a choice. Now, here comes the challenging part. What if God is calling us to be good shepherds? Can we do that? Yes, we can. We do what we can. We give what we can. We give our love. I suspect that during our lives, we've already been good shepherds. If you've ever sat and listened to someone who was lonely, someone who just needed a person they could talk with, then you've been a good shepherd. If you've ever been present for someone who desperately needed a kind and compassionate and caring person in a difficult time, you've been a good shepherd. If you've ever offered forgiveness or accepted it and reconciled with another, you've been a good shepherd. You see, being a good shepherd is really all about love. The kind of love that allows us to give away a part of ourselves, a selfless love that is given freely to another, a gift that becomes part of the other and will live in their hearts, a love that is so deep that it has the power to bring new life, new hope, new love. It all sounds a bit like an Easter kind of love, don't you think? I'd like to conclude with a real-life story that I think we could call a Good Shepherd story. During World War I, George, a young soldier, knew that his friend Tom had been gravely wounded and lay helpless between Allied and German positions. Despite great risk to himself, George went over the top of his trench and began to crawl toward his friend to pull him back to safety. By the time he pulled Tom back to the trench, he had died. His commanding officer told him it hadn't been worth the risk. However, the young soldier replied, "It was worth it. He was still alive when I got to him out there. He was still conscious. And he said to me, 'George, I knew you'd come.' He knew his own, and his own knew him. When you're weary and times get rough, like a bridge over troubled water, I will lay me down. I will comfort you like a bridge over troubled water. I will ease your mind. I will lay me down." Amen.